right, so I'm not in much of a position to complain, you know? Good morning to you. Good Sunday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports, and this is a special edition of Daily Shot of Steelers coming after the NFL draft class was completed yesterday. I'm going to go through those names with you before anything else. The fourth round saw their first pick of the day. That was Jack Sawyer, edge rusher out of Ohio State. Fifth round saw Yahya Black. That's another defensive lineman added to the fold, along with Derek Harmon, who, of course, was taken in the first round out of Oregon. Black is from Iowa. Sixth round saw the first quarterback, the only quarterback of the class, Will Howard, also from the national champion Buckeyes. Carson Bruner, a linebacker out of Washington, and yes, that's Mark Bruner's kid. Dante Kent, a cornerback / punt returner out of Central Michigan. Both were taken in the round that really ought to come to be known as the Danny Smith round. That's the seventh. And everyone seemed plenty satisfied. Afterward, Mike Tomlin even seemed to assign a theme to the whole thing when he was asked about the emphasis, the clear emphasis on shoring up the defensive front and maybe getting some big bodies into that mix.
Yeah, I would certainly agree with that, but it goes beyond the defensive front. We wanted to retool physicality in all areas, and included in that discussion is the use of the second-round pick to acquire DK Metcalf. Although he's a receiver, I think he fits the bill in terms of physicality and size. And so that definitely was an agenda of ours this weekend.
Okay, so there was a theme, and there was, to use Tomlin's word there, an agenda. They felt, rightly or wrongly, stung by the way the defense performed over the final few weeks in that collapse. I happen to think that component's overblown, but what happened in Baltimore actually did happen in Baltimore, and that's the last thing we saw. So they reacted accordingly. They'd wind up, out of their 7 picks, taking Harmon, Sawyer, and Black toward the defensive front. Caleb Johnson, a sufficiently physical running back. And as you heard Tomlin also remind everyone, the second-round pick was sent out for DK Metcalf, who's one of the more physical wide receivers in football. How much impact will they all have in 2025? Who'll start? Who'll be in a battle? Who'll get shoved out as a result, especially on that defensive line? There's a lot of names there that you look at, you know, in the kind of Isaiah Loudermilk category where you say, you know, wow, that's going to be tough for them to find a way to stick. But I'm going to tell you, there's something else I liked about this draft, and as often as I'm sharing that there's not a real hierarchy when it comes to the draft. Everybody always wants to know who to either credit or to blame, and I'm always explaining how there's more of a consensus and that all of their actual battles are conducted in building the big board, not so much on the 3 actual draft days. Well, there is someone very much in charge of doing the communicating with the other teams and deciding when and where and if to make a trade to go up or down, or just to flat out give up a pick or get another one, or even just to do the little swap that was done yesterday with the Chiefs in the late rounds. And that's Omar Khan. And that is singularly Omar. Now, he will look around the room and, hey, what should we do? So-and-so is saying this. Or there are also situations where someone else in the room will say back to Omar, hey, Omar, we can't wait on this guy, man. He's our guy. Listen, he's not going to make it to us. This looks bad. We need to go get him. And then Omar will attempt to get that done. But that call is the call of the general manager alone. And heck, when I say that call, I'm actually referring to the call that gets made. He's the one communicating with other teams' executives. Which brings me to my theme for this draft. That was remarkable resolve. Here's what I mean by that. Yeah, they wanted to get bigger. They wanted to get tougher. They wanted to get nastier. Did all that. But they also wanted, as I've been sharing with you for weeks now, a running back. That was going to be their priority after they got their defensive lineman. And even though they didn't have a pick in the second round, and even though they genuinely loved Caleb Johnson, Omar, in essence, sat there and waited and watched and hoped, but also measured who the other teams were, what they might want, what they might need. And he determined that he didn't need to go up. Listen to him explain this yesterday.
I think, let's just go back. It feels like it was a week ago, but it was, we fielded some calls just like we do every round, but it just felt like it was coming to us the right way. And, it hadn't been that run on the running backs yet, and it was a deep position, and we were excited that we were able to get him.
Sounds pretty cool, doesn't he? Okay, now, take all that and go exponential with it, because all anybody wanted to talk about in this particular nation in advance of this draft was quarterback. The Steelers did, in fact, want to get a quarterback at some point in this class, as I'd also been sharing with you for weeks. They were absolutely unequivocally not going to do it in the first round and didn't. But there'd been all kinds of thought, not just related to the Steelers, but to all teams anywhere that were thinking about the position, that you could go ahead and start taking some of them in the third round. Steelers didn't. They went and they got their running back. Well, for sure you're going to take it in the fourth round, right? Howard specifically was the player that I'd been pushing for up to and including yesterday's program. If they'd have taken Howard fresh off a national championship at Ohio State, fresh off a showing in which he had 4 consecutive really strong, arguably the strongest of his collegiate career performances in the Buckeyes' 4 playoff games, no one would have said a thing. No one would have complained. Not in the slightest. Oh, yeah, 4th round. That's a pretty nice round in which to get him. Didn't matter. Why? Because one of Howard's teammates fell. Jack Sawyer fell. The edge rusher. The Steelers did not need an edge rusher, to say the least. But remember the other thing I'd been bringing up about best player available, about how this franchise needs to get back to that. And when somebody's facing you and he's sitting there atop your board or high atop your board and you quote unquote can't believe he's there, then you make a decision. We're going to get this player or not? We're going to get him? Okay, we're going to get him. So they go ahead and they choose him. They worry about the quarterback, the position, at another point. 5th round, Yahya Black is there. A lot of people, I was not one of those, felt like they still needed to get a nose tackle. Well, so did the Steelers, quite clearly. And they put off quarterback to yet another round and eventually, obviously, got Howard at 185 overall. That is quality draft conduct by a general manager. So yeah, lots to like this weekend, but not just the what, also the why. When we come back, J1Q. Today's J1Q isn't really a question at all, but it's just such a good thing that was sent along. I want to read it to you and expound upon it in this segment. It comes from Grayson Brown. Says, this felt like an eat your protein and veggies draft. Might not be sexy like the carbs, but it'll pay dividends for the team in the long run. I think it's a good draft class overall. That's perfect, man. That is beyond perfect. Because even if you think of the top pick in this class, Derek Harmon, he's gonna come in. I'm just gonna give you an example here for as far as like fuss and attention goes. Rookie mini camp is in a few days, and all of them will be there, all of the picks, and what everyone's gonna want to hear about, and of course the people that you're gonna want to hear from are Caleb Johnson, the running back, and Will Howard, the quarterback. And, and here's a defensive lineman over here and a defensive lineman over there and a 4th edge rusher just behind that. It's not going to be that buzzworthy type of class. Someone else and I apologize for not having the name or the entry here in front of me, but someone else sent something to the effect of, everyone's saying this is such a good class, but why do I feel so meh about it? Well, the reason is, these drafts, you like to think of them, and this applies to all sports, as game-changing, as transformational, as taking how you felt about your team beforehand and having it be something totally different afterward. Whereas how I think I'd prefer to feel after 6-7 years of nothing particularly special in the way of results, especially in the first rounds, I just want to see the whole thing come together. I want to see how this draft meshes with the next draft, because if this one didn't have much quarterback talent, and very clearly it didn't, the next one's expected to have a lot of it. Okay, so why force a high quarterback pick in this round when you can just go where the Joneses are shopping? What's on sale this year? Oh, right, it's defensive linemen. Well, we could kind of use that. So you go where the value is. A really nice class for running backs. You just watched Najee Harris go out the door. Get yourself a good one. They did. Next year, they won't need to get a running back at all. So yeah, I'd think of this not just as what was this draft class, or what kind of a grade do you assign to this draft class, one of the weirder exercises anybody ever engages in. It's about how this draft class produces the best possible talent that it can, regardless of position, and how that dovetails with what happens with the next one, and then the next one, and then the next one. And by the time you have 5 of them together, you ought to have something if you take this same approach year after year after year. I appreciate that, Grayson. I appreciate everybody listening. The Daily Shot of Steelers will be back with the regular one, the Monday one, tomorrow. Thanks so much for being with us all weekend.